So, hello and welcome to another episode of Keiara's Tech Adventures. So today I will be reviewing the Apple iPhone 8. So up until now I've pretty much always had an Android phone. They've always pretty much been Sony phones. My last phone was a Sony Z5 Compact, but I've decided to take the plunge and buy an iPhone. So before anyone's wondering why I didn't get the Plus, I prefer smaller phones. I have kind of small hands, but I do prefer them to fit in my pocket, like my jacket pocket, and like a small bag, so it's just easier to always get a small phone. So as some size comparison, here is my Z5 next to the iPhone 8. Well, this is Z5 Compact, so if you can see, there actually isn't that much size difference, but width-wise, the iPhone 8 is a lot thinner. So, coming over from Android to iOS has definitely had some ups and downs. So iOS did actually feel a lot snappier and faster than Android did to me, especially on this iPhone 8, which will be one of the faster ones. But I've actually also used Siri quite a bit for downloading apps when I was feeling a bit lazy, and I've never actually used Google for that before, so I've never really done a comparison. But Siri has been really good. All my words have been pretty much translated exactly, and downloading apps is pretty easy when you can just name it with your voice and then just put your fingerprint on to download it. So the Fingerprint Reader, as you can see, is pretty fast. Now, I can't really comment on this much because of my Android phone. The Sony Z5 Compact, it's actually on the button which is along the side, which is covered by my case, so I'd never actually got to use it, but it does seem to be pretty accurate a lot of the time if I'm doing it sideways. There we go. I didn't really take my thumbprint all the different places, as it's usually sideways, so every time that my thumbprint is like that, it will pretty much always get it, and I haven't really had any faults with it so far, so that's all I can really say about it this far. So the lack of a back button was actually quite hard for me to get used to, because I do like going back just out of apps and everything on Android, and iOS doesn't really have that. Sometimes they can have a little back button up here depending on what app you're using, but a lot of the time you can also use this swiping motion to go back, so the gesture wasn't actually that hard to learn, and I was honestly surprised how natural it started to feel after I'd gotten used to it. But I mean, I was used to that back button. So the notifications come up a bit differently on iOS, as they come up day by day, and you can only clear it day by day. Whereas on Android, you have that one button that just clears all notifications. I wish they had that on iOS, at least I haven't seen it on my iPhone yet. And as an avid user of social media, I get a lot of notifications. So yeah, that's one thing that's really disappointing about iOS. So even though I very rarely use it, NFC was kind of disappointing for me, as you can only use NFC with Apple Pay on iPhone, which is really annoying because my Razer Leviathan speaker has an NFC function where you can tap your phone just to pair it, and well, you can't do that on iPhone. So the volume controls with the buttons, like any phone, are on the side, but unfortunately, you can only control one volume at a time. So like the ringer volume, or the actual phone volume when you're playing videos out the speakers, or if you have your headphone plugged in, the headphone volume. You can only do these one at a time. Whereas I very rarely miss Android's version, where you can just tap one of the volume buttons and all of the volumes that are on the phone come up, which is what I used to use a lot of the time, and it can be really annoying having to go into the settings now to change all the different volumes that I want to. So with the iPhone 8, you cannot add an extra memory card like you can with Android. You can get USB sticks for it, but I mean, who's gonna walk around with a USB stick sticking out the phone? But honestly, I can't really complain about this much, because I have the 32 gig version of my old phone, and I didn't even come close to filling that up. And the smallest version that you can get of the iPhone 8 is a 64 gig version, so I won't even come close to filling this up, so that isn't a big bother for me, but it can definitely bother some people out there who like to save music to the phone. So, going over the build of the iPhone 8, it has a glass back for wireless charging, and I'm pretty sure that the build is very similar to the iPhone 7. So, the camera of the iPhone 8 can do 4K at 60 FPS, and 1080p at 240 FPS. It is IP67 rated, but I'm pretty sure it's still recommended not to submerge it in water. So the battery life of the phone is pretty decent. I am quite an avid user of my phone, and I also have my Fitbit always connected via Bluetooth to my phone, and the battery on it usually lasts about a day and a half. So the charging cable, I can't really see it very much, there we go, is a lightning connector. So it was kind of hard for me coming from everything charging by micro to charge this phone because I didn't really want to move any wires around, so I ended up getting a wireless charger for this phone. So it has 2 stereo speakers and 2 microphones at the bottom and also here. The speaker itself can go quite loud. I only really have my Z5 Compact as a reference at the moment, so it is pretty loud compared to that, but if you're a headphone user like me, you're kind of out of luck with no headphone jack at the bottom. But in the box you do get a lightning to headphone jack adapter, which is kind of alright, I guess. You have to kind of lug an extra piece around, but you still get to use your headphones with this phone. So overall, this phone seems pretty sturdy. I have seen and heard a lot of the horror stories about the iPhones being very, very breakable. Now, that is what actually put me off a long time for getting an iPhone. Because I'm kind of careless with my phone, I have actually dropped this quite a few times, and there actually isn't any scratches or cracks on it at all, and also no bends from being in my pocket. So I wasn't really an Android fanboy, and I wasn't really an Apple fanboy, especially because I don't really have that much Apple stuff anyway, but I was actually really surprised how fast I got used to the differences between Apple and Android, even though, let's be honest here, there isn't that many differences between a phone and a phone, but it actually felt really, really natural, and I was really happy about that. I actually really like iOS. It feels a lot snappier and faster, as I've said before, compared to when I was using my Android phone. Things load up a lot faster, and also my phone doesn't get hot from running more demanding apps. I don't know if other people have experienced this, but with most Android phones I've had, it can get pretty hot depending on what you're using. So actually, I have to admit, my main reason for getting this phone was to actually get a cute case. Cause I don't know whether most people know this, maybe more girls out there, but there isn't that many cute cases for Android anymore. A lot of cases that are like made by manufacturers who want to like sell them to people usually make them for iPhone, just because a lot of people have iPhones. So you're kind of limited on what you get on Android, and that was one of the big deciding factors for me. So overall though, it is a really good phone. It handles my brake test at least. I have dropped it quite a lot and still no cracks or anything like that. My Z5 Compact is a brick, so we'll have to see how this lives up to that anyway. So the performance of this is really, really good, and I'm not really sure how that can compare to like maybe an S8, but I've seen my friend using it, and honestly, like, iOS still looks a bit snappier, unfortunately. But with this kind of performance and this price point, as it is like way more than I would usually spend on a phone, I am looking to keep this for at least a few years. So that probably means for me that I will have to get the battery replaced so that Apple don't nerf the performance on my phone. So if you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see more videos like this, give me a subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!